So, hello then, welcome back to another Night of the Movies video. I'm of course Spike Knight, and in these videos I love talking about things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's video, I am reviewing Wuthering Heights. So, let's get into it, shall we? Wuthering Heights is the new film from writer and director Emerald Fennell. Emerald Fennell, who made her name in, I want to say, 2021, although I might be mistaken there, with Promising Young Woman, which I thought was a really good directorial debut, and I liked that film quite a bit. I'm actually annoyed myself that I didn't see that film in the cinema. I saw it about a year after it came out on DVD, and I didn't realise how good it was until I was watching it, and I was like, wow, this is a really good directorial debut. And again, I was annoyed with myself that I didn't see it in the cinema, and her follow-up to that was Saltburn, which I think came out in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and that movie I did see in the cinema, and it was my favourite movie of 2023. Now, I understand why that movie wasn't for everybody, but I absolutely loved it, and I still love it now. I've seen that movie about 5 times, and it never gets old to me. So I was quite looking forward to what her follow-up to Saltburn as a writer and director was going to be. And then I heard it was going to be Wuthering Heights, and I was like, okay, I've never read the book, so maybe this would be a great... Maybe she could do something great with this, with the source material. Maybe she could do great with this adaptation. But then I heard who was cast, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can totally... Because I know roughly what Wuthering Heights is about. I know where it's set. And when I heard that Margot Robbie was cast, I wasn't sold on that. I was a bit like, okay, that's an interesting casting choice for a film of this nature. Still, I was looking forward to it because it's a new film from writer and director Emerald Fennell, who I like quite a bit as a filmmaker. But I'd also be lying if I said any of the trailers were to me, because they did not at all, and they made this film look like it was going to be, well, put it this way, a film that I probably wouldn't usually watch. Still, I went to go and see it nonetheless, hoping for the best. And I should also say here, I kind of alluded to it about a minute ago now, I've never read Wuthering Heights. Surprise, surprise. I have seen one of the many film adaptations of Wuthering Heights. I have seen the one with Ray Fiennes, who playing Heathcliff in that adaptation. I think that one from the 90s, and I didn't mind that film, but I also didn't love it. However, even though I haven't read the book, I watched that film version with somebody, another version with Ray Fiennes. I watched it with somebody who had read the book and said that that version of the film was actually quite close to the source material. It actually followed the story quite accurately. I mean, there were some changes, but again, it was quite close to the book. So, at least I think I know the story of Wuthering Heights, and I went into this film expecting certain things to happen, and all I'm going to say is, those things didn't happen. Yes. Here's the thing with this film. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it at all. But it really wasn't for me. And I can see this film becoming a cult classic in the future. I can see this film easily finding an audience. In fact, I do think it's already finding an audience, and I can see the audience being quite in love with this movie, you know? And I can also see this movie becoming a guilty pleasure for some people. Some people won't not like to admit it, but I think when this film comes out on streaming or on DVD, I can actually see a lot of people really liking it, but then not saying they do, you know? Like it is with many guilty pleasures. I can see this film becoming a guilty pleasure in the future, and I can also see it finding an audience. However, I do not fit into either of those categories. I didn't mind the first half of the film. In fact, I was kind of enjoying it. I mean, it was rubbish. It was silly. Parts of it were ridiculous, and I was watching it thinking, quite surprised that these two lead stars, because they're quite big actors, you know, the two lead stars of this film, Margot Robbie and Jake Elordi, they're becoming, particularly Margot Robbie, you know, she's a huge star, and Jake Elordi is becoming a huge star, particularly after his amazing performance as the creature in Frankenstein, which came out a couple of months ago now. You know, these two actors are becoming big stars in their own way, and I was really surprised that they were in a film like this. And from what I've heard as well, Margot Robbie is a producer on the film, and she read the script and said she wanted to be in it. Emerald Fennell, who was a writer and director on this movie, she wasn't initially going to cast Margot Robbie. I'm kind of interested to hear who she was originally going to cast, by the way, because I think that casting choice could have been better. But still, Margot Robbie plays Kathy, one of the main roles in the film, and she wanted to be in the movie. And Jacob Elordi apparently was offered the role of Heathcliff in the film via text message. Again, this is one I've heard online. And I think you can kind of tell, and not in a good way. I didn't believe in the central romance one bit. And so in the first half of the film, when you've got all this stuff going on with them two, it's not that good, but then the support characters kind of make it enjoyable, in my opinion. But then in the second half of the movie, it just becomes this self-indulgent, soppy and tedious love story that I really didn't care about in the slightest. The second half of the film focuses on the lovey-dovey aspects of Heathcliff's and Kathy's relationship. And I was sat there and I was thinking, oh my god, they're kissing again, oh they're doing this again, oh they're getting off with each other again, and I really began to lose it with the movie. And by the time it ended, I could not wait to get out the cinema. The film is meant to have this lasting impact on you. I do not think the last scene was effective in the slightest, and yet I'm meant to be sat there in tears at the end of this movie, and like what I said, I couldn't wait to leave the cinema. And I think it goes down to the central romance, which I didn't believe in. I didn't think Margot Robbie was good in this film. I think Margot Robbie is a really good actress. I don't love her quite as much as some other people do. I mean, some people, when they say, oh, Margot Robbie is a great actress, they refer to The Wolf of Wall Street, and I'm like, okay, she's really good in that film, but the way you're saying it makes it sound a bit pervy, you know what I mean? And my favourite performance of Margot Robbie is actually in I, Tonya, which I think she got an Oscar nomination for. Not that the Oscars matter, but I thought she was really fantastic in I, Tonya, and she was great in Barbie, and I thought she was really good as Harley Quinn. She's one of the best parts, one of the best part of the DC movies she was in. And I think this is her first film since Barbie, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but I don't remember seeing her in anything else over the past couple of years. And I just find this such a strange follow-up to Barbie. I mean, I kind of get it because it's completely different to Barbie, but also, you'd think after Barbie, should want to follow with something really meaty, you know? And there's nothing to this film. And her performance really comes across as a performance, you know? It doesn't come across as somebody throwing themselves into the role. I was watching her in this film, I'm like, I don't believe your accent 1 minute. Just want to say that now. I don't believe her she's doing a good accent, and she can do good accents. She can. I've seen her do it before, but I didn't believe her accent in this film, and I felt very much like she was enjoying herself playing the character a little too much. She was enjoying herself, you know, dressing up in all this fancy and lavish costume design, and that, again, I never really thought she was that good in the film. And I do think she is a solid actor, Margot Robbie. I think she's a really good actor, in fact. But I did not think she was good in this film. I thought that she was miscast. And I thought Jacob Elordi got better as the film went on. I didn't like him when he first came on screen. He was doing an accent which just didn't suit him. But then as the film went on, I thought he played the part a lot better and actually leaned into these subtleties with that character, which I thought really worked. But I didn't buy into their romance whatsoever. I didn't buy into Kathy and Heathcliff's romance one bit. I didn't think there was any chemistry between them two. I didn't think there was a spark between them two. And when they're on screen, to me, it felt like two actors just met before the film started shooting. It didn't feel like there was any rehearsals with those actors either. And so when that part doesn't work, it's hard to really get invested in what's going on, because this film is so centered on the romance. You know, this film is so centered on the Kathy and Heathcliff romance that when that's not working, it's a real struggle to really get into this movie. And, you know, there are good parts to it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a terrible movie. I don't think it is a terrible film. The production quality is on screen in the way you want it to be. The production design is beautiful to look at. It's a very well shot film. You can tell this is a film directed by Emerald Fennell, and I like that about it. I like when a director gets their vision across. You can tell this is the same person who directed Saltburn and Promising Young Woman, and I mean that in the best way possible. And I thought that the supporting performances were actually, and the supporting characters at that, were actually more interesting than the main performances. And the musical score by Anthony Willis is great. There's a lot of good parts to the movie. I'm not saying there isn't. It's shot on location in quite a lot of parts, and I do think that makes it more effective to watch. But the writing and the way it's paced and the way it's directed, it didn't grab me. I never really cared about this romance. I mean, I'm not the sort of person who goes out of their way to watch a romantic movie, for sure, but I have seen some romantic movies in the past that I've loved. You know, some movies which, you know, are romantic comedies as well, but one that comes to mind right now is About Time. About Time is a very romantic movie, but it's also funny and it grabs me emotionally every time I watch it. Whilst this film I was hoping was going to do the same, and the more the film went on, the more I got annoyed by the main two characters. I mean, I get that might be the point, but these main two characters are so self-absorbed and egomaniacs. And I was watching them, and when you get to the second half of the film and there's a lot of kissing, I just felt like I was watching two people I could not care about less sucking face. I really didn't like the direction the film took. And the second half of the film is pulling in all these different directions as well. It wants to be focused on the love story, but then it's doing all this other stuff, and it's doing all that, and it's like, ugh! There's so much that, you know, you feel like there's so many missed opportunities in this movie, particularly with the source material. And it doesn't really go into the whole supernatural element of Wuthering Heights either, which, as far as I understand, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand, is quite a big part in the book. And this film, at least as far as I remember, and spoiler it here in case you don't want to know this, but it doesn't touch on the supernatural element in the slightest. And it doesn't even cover the whole story. The film's 2 hours and 16 minutes long, and oh my god, it dragged in the second half. It became tedious to watch. And again, there were good parts to it. I'm not going to walk away from this film going, wow, what an absolutely awful movie in every single way. No, I think there's a lot to admire. The first half was kind of enjoyable to watch, in my opinion. I mean, again, it was silly, it was stupid, and it wasn't really working, but I was sat there thinking, you know what, I'm not enjoying this, you know? But the second half just dragged on and on and on, and there was so much sucking face. And I just, it felt like fan fiction. It didn't feel like it was adapting from this classic novel, you know? It just felt like it was, aiming itself more at teenage girls, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because, like I said, I do think this film will find an audience. And I do also think there'll be people who find it to be a guilty pleasure for themselves going forward. But for me, I just didn't care about really anything going on. I mean, you know, it has its moments, but man, what were they kind of... I don't really know what the aim of this film was. I don't know what I was meant to take away from it. I didn't feel anything really whilst watching it, apart from surprising a couple of moments that the film went there, but even that, some people are making this film out to be absolutely outrageous, and it's not. I think the most outrageous thing in the movie is the first scene. And even that's not that outrageous, you know? Anyway, I wasn't a fan. I do think it'll find an audience, but I'm not going to be part of that audience, unfortunately. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Wuthering Heights, I'm going to say that it's a 4 out of 10. I really hoped for more, because this is the same person who directed Saltburn, but I think that's also kind of the thing. I think Emerald Fennell works better when she's dealing... When it's her own story, when it's something completely original that she's come up with, like Promising Young Woman or like Saltburn, I think that's when she really works at her best. And here, it's kind of this odd thing where it feels like she wants to do her own thing, but she's also confined to the story. It felt like that whilst I was watching it. It felt like, yeah, she was trying to do her own thing, but also trying to be Wuthering Heights, and I don't think it really succeeded. So I'm really looking forward to whatever Emerald Fennell does next, and I'm hoping it's not a book, and I'm hoping it's not another adaptation, because I think she works best when she's dealing with her own material. But I do think this was a misstep from her. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities, and I was hoping to get something from it, and I just didn't at the end of the day. I walked away from this film, and I understand I'm not the target audience, but I can watch romantic movies and not be the target audience and still get something away from it, you know, and I just didn't. It's not badly shot. In fact, I would say it's quite well shot. It's beautifully produced. The costume design is eye-catching in the way you want it to be. And the supporting characters are actually more interesting than the main characters. But the film itself leaves a lot to be desired, and not in a good way. Yeah. It wasn't for me, which, you know, is not surprising to some people, but there is a version of this film which could have been for me. But sadly, the version we got wasn't that version that was for me, you know? The point I'm making is, Wuthering Heights was a big missed opportunity, in my opinion. It could have been so much better and actually had the opportunity to be so much better, but they focus on the wrong things, and instead it just becomes this sort of weird, soppy, lovey-dovey story that becomes tedious to watch. At least it did, in my opinion. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this video today, Wuthering Heights is a 4 out of 10 for me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's video. If you have seen Wuthering Heights, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching this video today. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching the video today. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.